presented by Private Internet Access.
And welcome back to We're All Satoshi. I'm here with Max Kordek from Lisk. So, you're putting JavaScript on the blockchain, on sidechains. Most people would be familiar with Ethereum or the general idea, but they have these problems where they invented their own language, they're putting all of it on the blockchain, as opposed to using JavaScript, which is available everywhere. Everybody knows it, or at least all front-end developers or most developers. And you're putting it on sidechain, significantly reducing the load on the blockchain itself. Yeah. What problem is Lisk solving?
Yeah, so first of all, these technologies and so on, it's all super complicated. That's why probably no one ever did it before, and we're like giving our best. We're working really hard to make them reality. And what problem we are solving is that back in the day, we saw a huge problem in the whole blockchain space. And this problem was that there are not enough developers, and therefore there are not enough experiments. Like if you're looking back, out of all strange internet experiments, some cool startups evolved, and out of these startups, maybe even huge corporations, right? I mean, Amazon, Google, Apple, they all started small. Apple more in the hardware sector in the beginning, but now they are more and more becoming a software company in some sense, or at least an enabler. And we feel like this same thing will happen in the blockchain space as well. You will see many scams, many experiments, many things where people don't believe in, but out of these experiments, real startups will evolve, and out of these startups, probably the next like billion or multi-billion-dollar companies. And we took a parallel to the traditional internet startup space back in like last year, and we saw that for rapid web application development, there were frameworks like Django or Ruby on Rails. And we wanted to replicate exactly that into the blockchain space. That means we wanted to develop our own framework or software development kit, SDK, for a blockchain. That means this would significantly wrap it up, make it simpler and cheaper to develop your own blockchain and build a decentralized blockchain application on top of it. And because we don't want to build like isolated islands. We really want to have like a network, a platform. And therefore we decided to make sidechains instead of just blockchains for developers so that they are connected to our system, to Lisk. And out of this, like a big community can evolve, and we can really focus on enabling developers all over the world. You mentioned JavaScript is super popular. There are like millions of JavaScript developers out there, and not only front end, also back end. There's like a runtime library, Node.js.
Enormous.
Yes, and even banks are using it nowadays. So it's for us like one of the languages of the future, and that's why we decided to build on it.
Makes perfect sense. If I can give you a thought experiment. We talked a little bit about Raspberry Pi earlier. Raspberry Pi runs Ubuntu Linux or whatever you want to put on it. It's got this legacy. Every single computer running today thinks it's a 4.77 megahertz IBM PC in one way or another. This little 8088 processor-driven metal box cost a fortune. Originally, it could just run one single thread on its assembly instructions. And then, as processor generations improved, you had something called real mode in the 8386, where all of a sudden you could run multiple threads in parallel as kind of hypervised by the processor. So all of a sudden you had multiple programs running still in the same metal box. They just thought they were alone, which they weren't. Then all of a sudden you had hypervisors, and you would have programs running in sandboxes thinking they were this metal box. But they would be in big data centers. They would think they had a screen and a keyboard, and they were this 4.77 megahertz IBM PC in a huge metal chunk. They just couldn't tell the difference. And so we had hypervisors, we had VMware, we had Docker, we had Amazon clouds with elastic scaling, but every single one of these threads behave like they are running in this IBM PC at 4.77 megahertz. programs on the blockchain break this image. They are the first thing in 30 years of computer science where code is not running on a 4.77 megahertz IBM PC, but they're running in the network itself. What does it mean to break free from this concept of running on one box?
So at the end of the day, of course, every code, every app is still running on one of these boxes, but not only on one, right? On hundreds or potentially even thousands or millions in the future. And they are checking each other's if the result is the same as in the others, creating a consensus and choosing like the majority outcome, basically. And for me, it's super fascinating because if you're only running on one computer, this one computer could have a bug or a variance which results in the wrong outcome, right? But now you can be really sure, because many computers do the same thing, that the outcome is really the correct outcome. And it's also manipulation free, because you now have like this decentralized network executing your code, so that there can't be like one guy in the middle which fakes it, you know?
Right,
because
you can't have a hostile takeover of the code.
Yes, in the best case at least. And for me, it just creates and opens up so many opportunities for the future, because I really think like the future is decentralized. The future should be trustless. We shouldn't trust any government. Why is that? Because everything becomes more automated. At one point, I think everything will be so damn complicated that we don't even comprehend what's going on. And in this time, then we need to make sure that everything is just running trustless, without anyone intervening or possibly intervening, so that we can really trust what is happening around us. Else we would always live in danger, maybe, or in fear of like machines attacking us or whatever, you know.
There was one philosopher in Europe who asserted that the tax authority should not have access to computers.
Okay.
Because if they need to do everything by hand, then you have an honest chance of comprehending all the tax rules. The instant you give the tax authority access to computers, the tax code is going to get so complicated you cannot possibly keep up with it.
Well, I think it's game over already, right? For me, I can't follow them all. That's why we are using an accountant to help us out here. It's quite complicated.
Right. So where do you see Lisk going? I mean, you're very well off financially at this point. You have a really exciting project and a really exciting product. You're dev focused, just like Borland was early with their C product and Pascal products, which Microsoft took over. I mean, they were always catering to devs. So do you see yourself as the dev epicenter or the dev offering on blockchain technology?
Definitely. So our focus is definitely on developers, and we call it app commissioners. So the CTO kind of person who is looking for tools or SDKs to be used in his company. And this is like our brand strategy. These two user groups are the ones we want to make happy. We want to focus on. And it's basically our whole mission to just enable developers to build decentralized blockchain applications. And well, we are very well off in terms of financial resources, but I think we also have like one of the best teams in the blockchain space. This month we are 22, next month we are 24 people, quickly expanding the whole team. Starting next month, we have like office space at WeWork here in Berlin Sony Center for over 50 people. And in a few more months, we have space for over 75 people. And that means we really are hiring like crazy right now, all kinds of positions, from all kinds of development positions, but even marketing positions and operation positions, because the demand is just there. We really need people to build the future of blockchain, the future of Lisk. And we really, even though we are really focused on developers, we also feel like this whole blockchain space always has this community aspect. That's why we are also building up this marketing team, which is like a third of the size of the development team, or even smaller right now, in order to communicate with the community, in order to promote our platform. Because, I mean, even though we are targeting developers, this has to be promoted, right?
Right.
We have to go to developer conferences, we have to do events, hackathons, and so on. So we have this marketing team which is putting a lot of effort into spreading the word, and I think they're doing an amazing job. Our Twitter follower number just grew from 25,000 like not even 2 months ago to now over 60,000. So we are exploding everywhere. We had like 500,000 visitors, unique visitors on the website. So it's going really well.
Really happy to hear that. And the advantage of decentralized applications is not just that you don't have a single point of failure, you can't be taken over by an adversary, as you said. It's also the idea of censorship resistance with the entire blockchain. As in, if I want code to run forever, that's how you would do it, isn't it?
Exactly. Like we see so many Google products being shut down because for Google they're not like big enough or lucrative enough. And in the blockchain space, a decentralized app, as long as there are users who want to use the app, it's running because they could just secure it themselves, right? So it's pretty fascinating in my opinion that you can build these applications which potentially can run forever.
And which are available to everybody forever, just because somebody still wants it. Exactly,
yes. There are no borders in the blockchain space. And I'm glad that there are none.
That is fascinating. That is a really fascinating project.
Thanks. I mean, it's just starting out here at this point, right? For me, before the SDK is not out, it's all just like setting the foundation, setting the basics. And in the blockchain space, you always have these traders, these investors who are just looking for the next pump. But we, or at least I, see Lisk as a regular startup. We're building our product, we're taking our time, we do it correctly and slowly in order to really build something sophisticated and not some shit, you know. I think that's the right approach to do it. We saw it in other startups before, non-blockchain related, that they took their time in order to build a good product and not pushing out some code which might not even be secure or whatever. And for me, that's like one of our key strengths. The community doesn't see it like that, but I see it like that we just focus on Lisk itself and not on the market or on exchanges.
I think that's really healthy.
Maybe I talk a little bit more about the sidechain aspect, the tech focus of Lisk. So the reason why we want to build sidechains is that we feel like, first of all, blockchain technology is very complicated. We don't want to put everything together in one blockchain. We want to create these connected islands, these single-purpose blockchains or sidechains where a developer has really full control over what he builds. Is it like he can choose a consensus algorithm, the block time, but also the logic or the application itself which runs on this blockchain itself. At the end, the blockchain is just a decentralized database storing values, right? But the logic sits also somehow, somewhere in between, being executed maybe with every block. So we really want that developers focus on their product and they can really customize it as they need it. They can choose a transaction fee they are confident with. Like, for example, in other blockchain projects, some developers have the problem that the transaction fees are already too high. And in
most of them even.
Yes, and in our case, they're on their own blockchain. They can program the fee inside. And recently a big focus was always this token, doing an ICO, having your own token, right? And I personally, we did our own ICO back in the day. I personally believe in this concept. I think it's a great concept because it enables even young entrepreneurs to collect money and build their dreams. And the problem now is that this token should be used. But if you're on one blockchain, you still need to have this mother token as a fee. But in our case, if you just want to use your own token, you could potentially send it into a sidechain and just use it there. So you would never use Lisk just to send a token around, you know?
Right.
So there are many, many advantages in that sense. A quite funny example I also bring sometimes is like, let's say you have only one blockchain and someone is building a prostitution marketplace, a weapon marketplace or whatever, child porn on it. Do you think like Mercedes, IBM, Microsoft, Google, whatever, now wants to build their apps on the same blockchain? I'm not so sure about it. At the end it's decentralized, but it's still on one blockchain, right? So we are just trying to develop this alternative system. I don't say it's better, but it's different.
So you're essentially saying that since the business market today is so used to the concept of segmented markets, the technical solution you're presenting is giving them something they recognize. It's giving them the ability to associate or not associate with other players as they see fit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm giving them their own environment to play in instead of being like part of just one big mess.
Right, and at the same time, even though the red light district in Amsterdam uses euros, same as Mercedes, that is so abstract that they don't really see a connection.
I think people are a little bit blind for that. I mean, people say like, oh, Bitcoin is the money for the drugs and the money for the weapons. But US dollars being used millions times more for that.
Yeah.
But no one sees it, you know? Either be it like government brainwashing, or they just see like they use what they are seeing themselves, like they're using it every day for normal goods, you know, for eggs, for the latest PlayStation or whatever, but not for drugs or weapons themselves. But then they're just reading like news articles about Bitcoin and drugs, Bitcoin and weapons, and then they're being like a little bit like manipulated in that sense. I think it's like a problem in the society that they're thinking like that. But in terms of these applications, it has more like practical use cases to offshore them basically to their own sidechain instead of being everything on one.
That makes perfect sense.
Definitely.